Hi, I'm Desiree Hadley,
And I'm Andrea Mason with Newark People's Assembly.
and welcome to another episode of Hold the Line with Mayor Ras J. Baraka. Mayor, how are you doing?
How you doing?
Good. So today we're going to discuss a few topics as we do every show. So our first topic is going to be the COVID-19 check-in. We're going to discuss the cleanliness of the city, CCRB, home ownership in Newark, and the upcoming holiday of Juneteenth.
Yeah.
So let's go into the COVID-19 check-in. So the COVID-19 pandemic seems to be stabilizing in the state of New Jersey, and more specifically in Newark. So as of June the 4th, we're at a 7-day rolling average of 1.6% positivity rate and a 3-day rolling average of 0.85% test positivity rate.
Right.
So from your standpoint as a leader of Newark, where do we stand as a city against this pandemic?
Well, we seem to be doing pretty well right now. And funny, I was having a conversation with somebody upstairs about getting a vaccine. She said, "I don't want to take the vaccine. We're almost finished." And I said, "We're almost finished because of the people who've taken the vaccine." So, I mean, in order to be helpful to that number, you should do that, right? Help us drive it out of the city by getting vaccinated, you know. And in the same conversation, talking about how she just got her son vaccinated, measles, mumps, rubella, all those other things. So I think that people are not seeing this as they see everything else from all of the stuff that's going on. But we're over 50% adults in the city have been vaccinated at least once. So we're doing pretty good. You just have to get a few holdouts to get it done.
So, Mayor, we've been encouraging vaccinations so often that people don't believe that they still need to be tested.
Right.
Because of this, although the positivity rate is lowering
Right.
with the COVID numbers, should people still get tested?
Yeah, people should get tested. If you've gotten a vaccination and you've been around people who have not been vaccinated, you probably should still get tested. If you're not going to take a vaccine, you definitely should be getting tested all the time to make sure you're safe and that you're not giving the disease to anybody else. It's important that you continue to get tested.
Newark currently hosts a number of community cleanups within the city, and the city also openly encourages recycling. We're moving towards becoming a greener city with the upcoming Newark Go program, which is a shared bike and scooter program, which should help to decrease the level of car exhaust within the air in Newark. So what do you say to those individuals who still feel like Newark is still not as clean as it can possibly be, and who's responsible for keeping the city clean?
They're absolutely correct. Newark is not as clean as it should be. And I think a whole bunch of people are responsible. I think DPW has the chief responsibility, but also people's homeowners and people who live here are responsible. They're responsible not to throw garbage on the street. They're responsible for reporting people who illegally dump, who bring garbage and pile it up in neighborhoods. That they see that, they should report them. We're responsible for making our neighborhoods clean and keeping it that way. And it's not always on somebody else. We have to take the initiative ourselves to make sure that our home, our building, whatever it is we live at, is clean in the front, around it, and on the block, and whatever. And you have to do that if you want to live in a city that is clean, healthy, and safe.
So, Mayor, I've definitely realized that cleanliness of the city is one of your pet peeves, or the lack of cleanliness is one of your pet peeves. Under the new leadership in DPW, how do we increase the responsiveness of sanitation matters?
Well, I mean, some of it is a lot of personnel and manpower issues. So we're in the process of fixing that now, trying to get them the numbers that they need, and at the same time holding people accountable who are just not coming to work. There are people who refuse to do the work, and there's so many people out here who want to work. We need to find out how to transition them out and put people in who actually want the job. And we're going to do that because cleanliness is incredibly important.
So moving along to the CCRB topic. So back in 2016, the state Supreme Court ruled that Newark Civilian Complaint Review Board could not be granted subpoena power according to the state law, and that it may not conduct investigations at the same time as the police department's Internal Affairs Office. This decision came out of the Newark Police Union challenging the board in court. So last Thursday, the city of Newark yourself, along with community leaders, hosted a press conference here in the council chambers, calling on state legislators to pass Bill A4656 S2963 by the summer.
Right.
That was the deadline you imposed. You, along with many others, are interested in supporting this bill that would allow subpoena power to be granted to all of the CCRBs across municipalities in the state of New Jersey. This bill needs 41 votes in the state assembly and 21 in the state senate for passage. For those who may not know or understand, us needing a CCRB with subpoena power, why is the passage of this bill so important, and why does it need to happen now?
Well, we're actually the only city that has a CCRB now. There are many other cities that want to do it, and they're just waiting for this bill to be passed so they can set it up in a way that they think it needs to be set up. It's important to have subpoena power, just like the Congress. You know, when Congress oversees the military, they can subpoena records, they can subpoena officers, they can subpoena superior officers. We need a body that can do the same thing, that can subpoena individuals, but also subpoena records, documents, body camera footage, reports that civilians made. And I don't know why it's such a huge thing, because it's not criminal. So they don't investigate criminal complaints. Criminal complaints are investigated by the prosecutor's office. All the CCRB does is investigate procedural complaints, complaints that civilians may have that are not criminal. And that's important because, look, at Derek Chauvin had half a dozen of those kind of complaints before he committed murder. And if he was caught early and thrown off of the force, maybe he wouldn't have been able to commit that murder, right? George Floyd would be alive.
So you use subpoena a lot of times, and I know personally that many of the residents don't understand what the subpoena power means. So can you share what it means and how having the power will actually benefit the CCRB?
You have the ability to ask for records, right? So if there's, you file a complaint, the complaint is in the police department, we don't have access to the complaint. A subpoena, when you give it to the police department, they have to present the complaint to you so you can look at it. If there's body camera footage, they don't necessarily give the body camera footage out, especially during an investigation. But the board can subpoena the body camera footage and look at it before the investigation is over, right? So they can't use that excuse. You also can subpoena officers. You can make compel an officer to come before you and tell him his account of the story or what happened. You can do those specific things and question them. But that's why people don't want that.
So, had we had a CCRB with subpoena power years ago, how do you think that would have impacted the relationship between the community and police here in Newark? I
think it'd be a lot different. I mean, even in the Department of Justice report, we had one substantiated complaint from the Internal Affairs in years, right? So, which is absurd. So it's about hundreds of complaints, only one was substantiated. So a CCRB allows us to look at those complaints while they're happening, or allows a resident not to go to the Internal Affairs. Say, because I don't trust them, they're not going to do anything. Allows you to go to a private body, independent body, say, I'm going to make my complaint there, and then they do the investigation. Just us being under consent decree has increased the number of substantiated complaints in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years that we haven't substantiated in 10, 15, 20 years, right? So we've almost doubled, more than doubled the amount of substantiated complaints in the city. So and officers have been penalized, suspended, fired, all kind of things because of just the new internal affairs. So imagine if you had a CCRB that was doing their job back then. There'll be a lot of redress to the things that have been going on.
Right. All right, so we're moving along to home ownership in Newark. So on June 1st, the city of Newark, with Invest Newark, you of course, and Newark's EHD, hosted a ribbon-cutting event for Section 8, the Section 8 Home Ownership Conversion Program. This is a program where families who qualify with a Section 8 voucher can use it to purchase their first home. Currently, there were 3 families chosen who were selected from a lottery system. And Andrea, did you want to give a question on that one?
Sure. So, Mayor, many parties are interested in home ownership, whether currently on Section 8 or not. It was determined that Newark is rent burdened, and residents feel that rent is steadily increasing and is unsustainable and just, frankly, too expensive. How do we ensure that this program is empowering and rather than enabling? That's the first question. And then also, because we want success for all our families, how do we ensure that the eligible families will sustain the properties with all costs associated, especially with the wealth gap in Black and brown communities?
Well, the wealth gap is addressed by giving people the opportunity to own a home, because that's where wealth is. The wealth is in your home. Most of American wealth originates from home ownership, which is why there's a huge gap between Black and brown people and everybody else, because we're just not homeowners. And that's a part of it, and passing it down from generation to generation, land and property. The Section 8 voucher allows them to own the home right out after 15 years. And they go through a program where they're doing financial assessments, where they're teaching them how to, deal with their money and mortgage and all this other kind of stuff. So they're just not being thrown into the property. They're actually going through programs so they can be able to manage the property and deal with it properly. And their rent is not increased, even if they gain more money. It is the mortgage that they sign, the deal that they make, keeps the rent at that, keeps the mortgage at that level for the 15 years. So the amount of money that they use for the voucher more than covers the mortgage, right? So it covers a lot more, and so they should be able to manage with that in a 15-year period, and own the home outright, which is a lot. A lot of people still in there. Most mortgages are 30 years, right? So that's half the time. So it's an incredible opportunity for people who are trying to make that transition, make that jump. Obviously, your income levels affect your ability to apply for that and get that kind of deal. And plus, we sell a property at a very low rate anyway. So it's not that expensive considering mortgages. In terms of the rent, we are established. We just putting out an RFP to create housing for people at 30% of the AMI, which is families that make about $34,000 a year, which is more than half of the people in the city. And so the rent, we have rent control, rent stabilization in the city of Newark. And folks a lot of times have to be engaged with the city government, right? We engage after the fact. Like something happens to us, we call down, as opposed to being engaged and knowing the information ahead of time. So if you get something to say your landlord is raising the rent and it seems to be something that's not reasonable, or you feel like this is not something that should happen, the rent control board not only can fix the rent, and in some instances in Newark, we've given residents money back from rent from landlords who have raised their rent illegally, right? We've made them pay money back. So there's opportunities are there, and there are people here who are fighting to make sure that your rent is at least stabilized and that we keep the housing that we have that is already moderate to low income. New housing that comes along, however, is where the rent gets raised. And so the trick is to try to get people out of their housing, and so we have to keep people in housing, which is why we have a department upstairs that represents tenants when people try to evict them for free, because they evict you and they raise the rent for the next person. And that's really what the trick is. But so you have to cover all of those bases. New housing come in, they're going to raise the rent. We have to do inclusionary zoning to allow them to make them build some of the units at a price that we think is reasonable. So it's a complex battle, but it's something that we're in and we got to stay in it.
Right. So we're at 1 minute, so I'm just going to give people information on how they can learn more about the Section 8 conversion program, and then we will be done for this episode. So if you are interested in learning more about the Section 8 home ownership conversion program, you can email hcvphelp@newarkha.org with your full name, address, employment info, and whether or not you receive unemployment or temporary assistance. Thank you, Mayor. That's all we have time for this episode.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for watching.